Hello and welcome to the Let's Talk Seahawks podcast. I'm your host, Robert Smith, along with my co-host, Adam Carver-Stellman. And today, we'll be going over our top 10 safety prospects for the 2023 NFL Draft. Adam, let's talk Seahawks.
Let's talk safeties. Probably my favorite position in the NFL or in football, period. And that's partly due just because to the legendary Seahawks Legion of Boom being the greatest safety tandem in the history of the NFL. So, spoiler alert, you're probably going to hear me invoke the name of one particular safety a few times in this draft, the great number 31 Cam Chancellor. So if I do that too often, Robbie will go ahead and hit the buzzword and say, all right, that's one too many. But you're probably going to hear it a couple times.
Fair enough. I really like safeties. I talked about playing defensive back, coaching defensive backs. Really, that's where my passion lies, is with defensive backs, especially in the coaching world and in the talent evaluation area. So, yeah, I like all these guys. I'm just really excited to dig in and watch film and make scouting reports on these guys. So I'm excited. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. So as you can see, our top 10 will consist of our true top fives from both of us, which makes 10, and then 3 prospects that we consider mid-round, round 3, 4, 5 kind of prospects, and then a couple late round prospects. So let's just jump right in. And at number 10, I have Kayvon Merriweather out of Iowa, and Adam has Christian Young out of Arizona. So Kayvon Merriweather is one of these guys who really intrigued me when I watched the tape. He's a good athlete on film, but then he tested average. I mean, just middle of the road. He tested between the 40th and the 60th percentile for the group and historically for safeties. But here's the thing. He's a good athlete. He has a extensive basketball background. In fact, he had multiple D1 offers to play basketball before he ultimately chose to focus on football. His production improved season after season. To me, that says that it shows growth. It shows coachability, looking all of those traits developmentally improve. He's got solid coverage instincts, and he's pretty solid in run support as well. And then this stat just blew my mind. I mean, I know he had a good 2022, but he surrendered an elite quarterback rating when targeted of 11.7. I mean, that's insane. And I don't know if people were just staying away from him. That's a possibility. But he locked it down when he had to. And that's something I really like out of a prospect who's probably going to go a little later in the draft because his testing numbers weren't what everybody thought they were going to be.
Yeah, I love the fact that you picked this guy. He's not on, spoiler alert, he's nowhere to be seen on my side of the thing. But yeah, you want to talk about an elite year. His 5th year, which was last year, he was a 5-year senior, was just ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, you already mentioned, obviously, the target ratio, but he had 4 pass breakups, 3 interceptions. The man was in on just a ton of tackles. I think he had like 50 tackles. He is, well, look, Iowa might have one of the best draft classes of any school this year. There are nothing but just ballers coming out of Iowa in this draft, and he's no exception. Yeah, he obviously didn't test super well. Didn't show elite numbers at the combine. But yeah, like you said, he's a very fluid athlete. This guy, obviously, coming from a basketball background, knows how to move side to side and has pretty good closing speed. I think that I don't know if he split time between basketball or not, but I think the only knock I have on him is he tends to let plays develop in front of him and then wait to kind of drive on the ball. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. He's got enough closing speed to kind of get there, but it at times I think it looks like his play recognition isn't what you want it to be because he is a little bit slow to react when the play starts to develop in front of him. Not that he can't get there. He's got enough closing speed, even though he didn't test super well with his athletics. He plays fast on the field. So I don't know that necessarily hurt him, but just watching him, he's a little bit slow to react. And that's my only knock for my game tape on Merriweather.
I'll go ahead and agree with you on that one. That's definitely something he needs to work on. And I believe that goes with trusting those instincts. because I think he has the right instinct. He just is a little conservative, doesn't attack when he needs to attack. All right, so you have Christian Young out of Arizona. It's no surprise to see a Texas or Arizona player on your list. But tell me a little bit about Christian Young.
Yeah, I'm definitely one of those guys that likes to keep tabs on the schools from places I've lived. Living in Austin, obviously you'll see a few Texas guys, or have seen several Texas guys on my boards. In this case, I was in Arizona for about 10 years, and I still like to watch the Wildcats play. The biggest thing with Christian Young is his size. There are not a lot of safeties built like this. There was only one that I can remember off the top of my head, and that's, like I said, number 31, Mr. Cam Chancellor. This is a 6'3", 230-pound safety. That's huge. And this guy also, again, is a physical freak. He once again, and you'll see this is pretty consistent with a lot of my lower, the guys that I have kind of a little bit lower on my draft board. These are guys that all made Bruce Feldman's freak list. And yeah, he is a willing tackler. He knows how to throw his weight around. He's a little undisciplined. He did draw quite a few penalties. He tends to kind of over pursue, especially when involved in the run game. So he doesn't necessarily take the best angles. Most of that for me is a lot of coachable stuff. If he can get coached up, this is a guy that I think could be an impact player. I think if he makes a roster coming out of the draft, not that I necessarily think he's going to be drafted. This guy's, again, probably one of those priority free agents for a lot of teams. But if he makes a roster, he's going to contribute on special teams right away. This guy knows how to lay the lumber.
Yeah, right there with you. I think he's solidly an undrafted free agent, but he's interesting. So, like you said, elite size, and I don't know how he made the freaks list because he tested horribly. In every testing metric, we're talking 40-yard dash, 10-yard split, 3-cone, short shuttle, vert, broad jump, all of those things. He tested lower than the 40th percentile, and 3 of those categories, he was lower than the 10th percentile. So
yeah, this guy definitely did not, sorry to cut you off. Yeah, he definitely didn't test well, but go back and just watch game tape. This guy can lay the lumber. And I think that's probably why. I mean, I think this was more, making this list was probably more about the fact that he's, again, 230 pounds at near 6'4". He's just a little over 6'3", and he just beats people up.
Yeah, in fact, that was the second half of that comment, was that he looks athletic on tape. So where's the question? Why doesn't that match up? Because you want to at least see what you see on film in testing, because you don't have pads on in testing. You don't have obstructions that you have to run around. Nothing like that. So you should be faster in testing than you are on film. So that's one of those questions, and just a red flag. I do think he tracks the ball well while it's in flight, and I think he has solid ball skills. So definitely some tools to build on. Let's see if he falls completely out of the draft due to that testing.
Maybe he's just shy. Maybe he was just a little embarrassed being ogled on television in his underwear.
There you go.
Sorry.
All right. Coming in at number 9, still in our late round, I have Javarius Owens out of Houston, and Adam has Daniel Scott out of Cal. So Javarius Owens, good short area quickness and agility. He's quicker than fast. I think he ran in the either high 4.5s or the low 4.6s. He's not going to catch somebody from behind going down the sideline, but he has really good short area burst, short area quickness. He can cover slot receivers because he can stay with them through those first few breaks. It's when they burn him deep that he might have a little problem when he's lining up on the slot. Tracks the ball very well down the field. He displays good ball skills. He can break up passes and intercept the ball. Has a tendency to take some poor angles, and that's something that will quickly get you off of an NFL roster. I think this guy is draftable. He's going to be in that sixth, 7th round area. But that means he's going to have to break into a team on special teams, and it's hard to make it on a special teams unit if you're taking bad angles. So that's something he really needs to work on. But he shoots gaps well in the run support, and he really kind of holds his own. So I think he's a prospect that has a lot of upside if he can clean up those few technical problems that he has.
Yeah, I mean, again, this draft is really heavy on those guys that I think are Really good, or at least primarily going to be looking at in the box kind of safety skills. Now, most of them can still play the ball pretty well and they can sit back in coverage, but there's not a lot of true like center fielders. If we want to talk about old school like Ed Reed or even Earl Thomas type guys, there's a few of them at the top of this draft, but for the most part, you're going to see a lot of those more in the box style safeties, and that's where I see Owens kind of rounding into form. The biggest knock I have on him is he doesn't like to wrap up in his tackles, which is not necessarily, well, no, it is absolutely necessarily a bad thing, but it's because he relies on his smack ability. I mean, this is a guy that, again, although he can't do it quite to the effect that Christian Young can, he likes to go in there and try and lay the lumber. He wants to get that big hit, get that highlight reel. Unfortunately, it means that he often, not often, but a lot has seen missed tackles or guys that have shrugged him off and then made big chunks of yards because he was the last line of defense between the passer and the end zone. So.
Yeah, it's like I said, that's a fundamental thing. That's something he needs to clean up, because if he tries to just go smack somebody and knock them over on special teams, well, once again, off the unit, right? You need to wrap up, make a clean tackle. Everybody likes those big hits, but coaches don't. All right. So your guy, Daniel Scott, one of my favorites in this draft. But why do you have him here at number 9?
This was not a guy that I knew much about. Even though I'm a Pac-12 guy, I didn't watch a ton of Cal Bear games. So I didn't know anything about him until the combine. And this guy was a combine standout. Yeah, he put up some numbers. 39.5-inch vertical, 128-inch broad jump, ran a 4.45, which, although isn't super fast, is definitely more than enough speed for a safety. So yeah, he looks like he's a workout warrior. You go back and watch some game tape, and he did display some of that speed on the field. But I think this is another one of those guys that tends to play a little bit too much in his head. He's the biggest knock I have on him is he's pretty easy to look off from the quarterback position. He's one of those safeties that really likes to focus and read the quarterback's eyes, and that got him in trouble a lot because then he lost sight of his coverage responsibilities and bit a little bit on some of those fakes. But other than that, he's got all the skills to come in and be a pretty dynamic safety.
Yeah, I watched some Cal games once again. I'm living on the East Coast now, but I'm from the West Coast. West Coast all the way. So I like to follow those Pac-12 teams. And I saw him a little bit during the year, watched him some more in this pre-draft process. I was impressed at the combine. Like Adam said, he had good testing numbers. And to put that in perspective, every single one of his testing numbers, right? 40, 10-yard split, vert, broad jump, 3-cone, and his bench press were all in the upper 20th percentile, meaning he was above 80. And for safety, so he really was top half of the class and top half of the league in these type of measurable traits for safeties.
Yeah, this is one of the guys that being at the combine was a huge benefit. I don't think he was on a lot of teams' radars going into the draft. Maybe a few saw him, and he was again one of those final round or late day 3 targets, but he's shooting up draft boards, and it's all because of his combine work.
Yeah, I think he helped himself at the combine, definitely a riser after the combine, but he's a very good, very experienced special teamer. He has over 600 career special team snaps, so he was on somebody's board, a team that looks to kind of fill out that special teams depth for sure.
Perhaps the Seahawks, who don't have a lot down the draft down the depth chart right now.
Perhaps we had some key special teamers who were not re-signed come free agency. So people like Daniel Scott are very valuable in that regard. I thought he looked really good in the field work at the combine, really smooth, really fluid. If it looks like a guy isn't straining, if it looks like a guy isn't just huffing and puffing, then that means it's easy for him, and it's easy for him because he has fluid athleticism, and that's what Daniel Scott brings to the table. Really good field awareness, ball skills. You were talking about him reading the quarterback's eyes. He's really quick to react when he's reading the quarterback's eyes. I understand him being a little over-aggressive. I'd rather somebody be over-aggressive than under-aggressive, or conservative, probably the better term for that. And that's because you can get somebody to back off a little bit, but it's really hard to get somebody to be more aggressive because that's sort of an innate ability. I think he's better in zone. He won't be a slot defender right away. He has the athleticism that he can come in and match up with slots, but not right away. I think he needs to work on his man coverage a little bit. He does tend to commit holding and interference penalties when he gets beat deep. So I don't know if that's, I'd rather give up the penalty than the touchdown, but he does tend to panic a little bit and get a little grabby there with his hands.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. So Daniel Scott is actually my number 8. I think he did enough at the combine to raise his profile enough to get into those middle rounds. You have a prospect that I hadn't done a ton of work on. I had watched LSU tape, but I was primarily focused on other players. So when you submitted your list and he was on there, I had to go back and actually watch him a little bit and find out a little more about Jay Ward.
Yeah. So when I was trying to find again these guys that I thought, and honestly, after doing a little bit more background work, I might switch these guys on my board, and Daniel Scott might have overtaken Jay Ward in my list too. But the reason I initially had Jay Ward above him is because this is a guy who does not hesitate on the field. He is quick to react every single time. The one thing that kind of hurts him on is his tackling technique needs a lot of work. This is a guy who tends to take really high angles when trying to engage the offensive player, and so he's pretty easy to shrug off. There's a lot of game tape of him getting either stiff armed or guys dead legging him and wiggling out. So he needs to work on his tackling technique. But this is a really, really fluid athlete. He knows how to use his length to his advantage. Good ball tracking skills, and yeah, I mean he comes from LSU is a pretty elite program, so he was up against a lot of really elite talent playing at LSU. And there were times when he acquitted himself pretty well. I think this is another one of those guys that probably is going to be either a late round 5, early round 6 guy, but probably a core special teamer in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where he would be. Let's see. He's 6'1", 190 pounds. He's got good height. I think he could probably, his frame could get a few more pounds on it to make him a little more durable. One negative on him, and you don't hear this a lot with defensive backs. You hear this a lot with wide receivers and running backs, but he has small hands. He is in the 9th percentile for hand size at 8¼ inches. And to put that in perspective, I am just shy of 5'8". I like to say I'm 5'8". I'm not really. I'm just shy. And I have bigger hands than Jay Ward does. It's seen as a limiting factor for creating turnovers in the NFL. And that is something that can get a guy taken off of a draft board. You don't want to count on interceptions, but does the guy with smaller hands, can he recover fumbles as well? Is he in there knocking things away? And then if you want to look at it for a side-by-side comparison, Daniel Scott is 6'1", the same size as Jay Ward, and he has 10-inch hands. So he almost has 2 inches bigger hands, and they're the same size human. So just something that teams might look at. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to take him off of boards or make him an undrafted free agent. It's just something he's going to have to overcome, and that's a trait that he has no control over. I mean, that's genetics. So he has a lot of experience. He played 43 college games over the span of his career, and that was over 1,700 defensive snaps. So it's very good timing on his break. He disrupts passes. He has flashes of good ball skills. I'd like to see that a little more consistent, but he's really good with his breaks. He's got stiff hips, and I'm going to say a marginal change of direction when he's in coverage. That could hurt him, but he's not going to make any shift to corner. He's not going to be a big slot guy. He is definitely a safety, and that's where he's going to live. You don't want him turning and running with wide receivers. He's going to get beat more often than not.
Yeah, I had one more thing on him because I'm glad you actually brought up the turn thing. There are a few highlight reels of him that are not, well, low light reels is probably a better term for it. He last year, especially, I think he had at least 3 or 4 plays where he tripped over his own feet. He is not really great at coming out of his back pedal. That's something he's really got to work on. And again, part of that's having those stiff hips. But yeah, don't go look for these because it's embarrassing. But yeah, he had a couple low light plays because of that unfortunate lack of skill there.
Yeah, that happens. And a lot of people don't think the hips matter. You hear it a lot. Scouts are like, "Oh, he's got stiff hips or really good hips on this guy, really fluid hips." But it's just one of those things you look at for defensive backs, and that's because in the turn can make or break coverage. If you're in man coverage and you have a slow turn, that wide receiver is already past you before you even have a chance to start running. So, real big deal. All right, coming in at number 7, I have Ronnie Hickman out of Ohio State. And Adam, you have Trey Dean III out of Florida. So Ronnie Hickman, this is a player who definitely had a higher profile before the pre-draft process. His stock has been trending down. He had a pretty poor showing in his final 2 games of 2022, most notably against Georgia, where he posted a PFF grade in the low 50s. And that's really overshadowing a decent season. Now, over the course of the season, he only allowed 13 catches when he was targeted. And I believe he had over 30 or right around 30 targets. And he only gave up 100 yards. So, yes, it could have been better, but that's a pretty good season. He's better in coverage, but he's still effective in run defense. He's a willing and physical tackler. He's somebody you can rely on when he needs to go run that alley or, find that ball, the running back out when he goes out for a screen. He can diagnose and shoot those gaps. Somebody who has a lot of ability. I think he's in a little unfortunate situation. He needs to trust his instincts more. He has a tendency to hesitate, which we kind of talked about with other guys earlier. So, he has the instincts. He needs to go out there and just hit it and follow him. And, you're going to make a few mistakes, but more often than not, with his instincts, he'll be making the right move.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he had a really, really good season up until the last couple of games last year. He looked like he was going to be one of those guys that might have a breakout season and be just rushing up some people's draft boards. This is another guy that really knows how to use his weight and his size to his advantage, and that's not just his body size, but also the length and his hands. He uses them really well. Got great body control. This is a guy that's I think knows himself physically really, really well. Has really good feet. His lateral change of direction is fantastic. This is a guy who I think could eventually develop into that kind of one of the few guys I think could develop into that kind of like a deep safety, middle of the field, center fielder for a team. He's got that kind of skill. He's just got to. There's another guy that needs to work on his tackling. He's another guy that kind of relies a little bit too much on laying the wood, which I love. Look, I love those kind of big hits. My favorite favorite highlight in the history of the NFL is Cam Chancellor knocking the tight end from San Francisco's teeth out on the goal line. It's just an amazing hit. He got flagged for it. It was an absolutely illegal hit. He should not have been flagged, and it's just a beautiful highlight. But this is another guy that has that skill ability. He does need to learn to wrap up though.
Yeah, that was Vernon Davis who
Thank you, Vernon Davis.
Knocked into next Tuesday. Yeah. How about your guy Trey Dean? The third, excuse me.
Trey Dean. Yeah. So look, I know that you've got some notes on him, and I'm waiting for it. But let me just do a little positive here. This is another guy that's got elite size, 6'2", 200 pounds, knows how to use that size to advantage. This is one of those guys that I think plays with reckless abandon. He loves throwing his body around, love being in on every tackle. There's another guy that obviously, like I said, heard before, and this is a knock on a lot of these lower ranked guys, loves to rely on that a little bit too much. He's all about lowering his shoulder. He is not a big wrap up tackler guy. He wants to hit you. And he does that almost every single time, and that's my big knock on him. He doesn't like to use his hands when tackling. He just wants to lay you out. But I will say this. This guy's a force of nature. Like when he does lay the wood, he can do it almost better than anybody. There's one other guy like a little bit better in that category on this list. But my thing with him is watch this guy's footwork. I don't know if he was a dancer before or what, but this guy's feet are constantly moving while he's on the field. He's never standing still. He's always moving. And yeah, you want to talk about a fluid athlete. This guy looks like he could easily be in Riverdance.
Nice. Got to invoke some little Irish folk dance for you.
Michael Flatley.
Michael Flattery. Yeah, or Flatley, yeah. Yeah, I mean, like you said, great size and strength. I mean, he put up 25 reps in the bench. But he has a really confusing athletic profile. right? The film shows athleticism. It did not show up in testing, right? He had a poor 40, was in the 4th percentile. 10-yard split, 35th percentile. Short shuttle, 39th percentile, right? But he had a solid vert, 36 inches, 62nd percentile. His broad jump was 124 inches, right? So good there. And then he had an elite 3-cone, 6.69 seconds. That was the 92nd percentile. And once again, I mentioned his 25 reps on the bench for a safety, 98th percentile. So all over the place, right? Show strength. That 3-cone comes out of nowhere, right? So what do you
unless
do
you
with
watch
this
his
guy?
feet unless you watch his feet in game tape, and then it doesn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, what do you do with him? Right. You're right. He's a physical, aggressive tackler. He plays really well at the line of scrimmage. I say just commit to that. Add 25 pounds to that frame, which could definitely take it, convert to a linebacker, use that elite 3-cone, rush off the edge, and cover slower tight ends. Like, that's the perfect fit for this guy. He's going to take a little bit of time to develop, but he's got the traits to be an edge, right? He's going to have to gain weight. But you look at these numbers against linebackers, like if he was to be a coverage linebacker, and he looks a whole lot better than trying to fit into this defensive backs class.
Fair points.
So there you go. Normally I don't convert guys to the bigger positions, but I think he's somebody who could definitely handle that position change and actually take it pretty well. All right, coming in at number 6, I have JL Skinner out of Boise State. And being from the great state of Idaho, I do like to see prospects from the state represented. And you have Jair Brown out of Penn State. So JL Skinner, like I said, from Idaho. I'm actually a Vandals fan. So I would have preferred, maybe he went to the University of Idaho, but I'll take Boise State in a pinch.
Boise State.
Yeah, we'll take Boise State in a pinch. Very good size, right? 6'4", 215 pounds, 32-inch arms. I mean, this guy has some reach, disruption area, right? When he's out there, he can take balls away, right? Cam Chancellor is his favorite safety. He models his play after Cam Chancellor. And that just warms my heart because I was a big Cam Chancellor fan. Really like some of those guys from that era, and he's one of them. Right? He can play slot corner, but his hips are a little bit tight. He has slot potential. I don't know if I would bring him in and be like, I want you to be a big slot. Maybe in a rare occasion, maybe come down and play a little hook zone in that area after lining up over the slot. But, he's got it, and he definitely needs to work it just to see if a team uses him that way. He can be over aggressive, and that's what you see a lot from these bigger safeties. Definitely a box safety. I would like him to add another 15 pounds, maybe even as much as 25 pounds, because once again, his frame can take it. It probably won't hurt his athleticism too much. And 6'4", 230, 240. I mean, now you're really looking at like Cam Chancellor out there.
Look, I'm high on JL Skinner. You're going to see him several slides later for me. And then my thing is, if this guy likes to invoke the name of Cam Chancellor. It's his favorite safety. It's who he models his game after, and it shows in his game. This guy is the most fearless tackler I have ever seen come out of college football. Sometimes that's not necessarily a great thing. He tends to get his head a little bit too low, and I'm a little worried about some of his technique. But this is the only guy that I think can lay the lumber anywhere close to Christian Young, and he's 20 pounds lighter than Christian Young. But he knows how to use that frame, get low, and rock it forward to tackle guys. He also knows how to use his arms, so he can wrap up, which is something that some of these other guys lower on this list don't know how to do. I love JL Skinner.
Yeah, great prospect. All right, how about Jair Brown?
Jair Brown's another guy that I really like. He is an interesting prospect. I mean, he's a little shorter, 5'11", but this guy's over 200 pounds. He is a brick outhouse. I was going to say another word, but we'll say brick outhouse. This guy is built to hit, and he knows how to do it. But that's not the only thing he does. I mean, this guy, this guy knows how to track balls. He gets in with every play. He knows how to get his hands on a receiver at the line if he needs. He's good at coming forward into the box and helping out and run support. I think this guy's being slept on a little bit. I've seen him go as late as the 5th round in some drafts. I think this is a guy who has a chance, if he gets in the right system, to be a contributor from day one.
Yeah, he's another confusing prospect. I really want to like Jair Brown more than I do, right? Highly productive over the last 2 seasons. He has over 140 tackles and 10 interceptions in 2021 and 2022, or over 2021 and 2022. He has marginal instincts, right? That limits his potential. You see him out there, sometimes he looks a little bit lost. He had subpar athletic testing, and that just had him falling down draft boards ever since the combine. I see him as a late round pick. I think some mock drafts might have him in the 5th round, but you got to think a lot of those mock generators, like they had an initial set of rankings and they didn't really adjust them too much. And so
that's fair.
Coming into the pre-draft process, oh yeah, I would have pegged this guy 3rd round, 4th round, easy all day long. But I think he's really going to go in that 6th, 7th round kind of range. And it's a shame because he's had really productive seasons, which means he can get the job done. And he was getting the job done in the Big Ten. So I hope it doesn't hurt him too bad. I hope he can get into a camp and show that athletic testing was maybe a little bit of a fluke. And he's one of these guys, when he puts a helmet on, he all of a sudden becomes more athletic and faster, because those guys do exist. We'll have to see what happens.
In the right system, I think he can come in and be a day one contributor. But it's got to be the right system.
Oh, for sure. So now we enter our true top 5. These are our 1st through 5 safeties in this class. At number 5, I have Jordan Battle out of Alabama, and Adam has Antonio Johnson out of Texas A&M. So Jordan Battle, I like him. I actually ended up moving him into my 5. He was probably sitting at 6 or 7 on my true board. And then I kept watching tape and I'm like, you know what? No, I have to move him up. And in fact, it was because Adam had him higher. And so I was like, okay, I need to have something to say a little more about him. So I went back and rewatched tape, went back and reevaluated him. And that reevaluation moved him up my list. And so thank you, Adam, for making me take a look at this prospect a little bit more. But Jordan Battle out of Alabama, he's a well-rounded safety. He can play either of the traditional safety positions, either that free safety or that in the box strong safety. He, however, does not have slot coverage versatility, which I think is fine. We have a lot of guys who can play slot at corner in this draft and at safety in this draft. He's very experienced. He has over 800 snaps in each of the last 3 years. And then if you put everything together, he has over 3,000 total defensive snaps.
Insane.
While he was in college. Once again, having the extra eligibility year for COVID might have skewed those numbers a little bit, but that's a lot of experience. Good football IQ, always knows where he needs to be, and he's backing people up, making sure they get where they need to be as well. Physical tackler, he plays with aggressiveness in run support, though marginal man coverage skills. I don't want him coming down and lining up man on anybody. He's much better in zone. He needs to be in a concept where he can play zone and use those instincts that he has.
Yeah, look, obviously, he'll be coming up. I think he's my 2nd or 3rd. He'll be coming up on the list pretty quickly for me. I love Jordan Battle, and I don't often like to rank Alabama players very high. Not a big Alabama fan. I can't stand the Crimson Tide, mainly because I have too many friends that are fans, and I am so sick of hearing Roll Tide every season. Anyway, moving on. But look, just go back and look at this man's accolades, and he earned them because he does not come off the field. This is out of all the safeties, probably all the defensive backs in this class, he has the highest motor. Jordan Battle will give you 150% day in and day out. If you go back and if you listen to some of the things that Saban has said about him, he is a consummate professional. He gives 100% even in practice. He's always go, go, go. He's a rah guy. He is the guy, I think, that makes Alabama the type of team that it is, because of the type of effort that he shows play in, play out. no one else wants to look like a slouch next to him. So he brings everyone's game up. This is a fantastic locker room guy. Wherever he goes in the NFL, he is going to make that defense better.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Great prospect. How about Antonio Johnson out of Texas A&M?
Yeah, I know that, and I'm sure that this is the first one that people are going to go, what the hell is he thinking? I am much lower on Antonio Johnson than probably most people are. Certainly, I know I'm lower on him than you. There's not a lot to criticize as far as his physicality and his game tape. The one thing that concerns me, and not to say that this isn't a coachable thing, but at 6'2", almost 200 pounds, this guy doesn't play to his size. He looks, when he plays, he looks like a much smaller player out there. He's not super aggressive in his tackling. Not that he can't wrap guys up. He's got great technique. There's nothing wrong with his game there, but he is not a very aggressive player. And that is something, again, that's preference for me. I like safeties that want to get in and lay the lumber, and that is not who Antonio Johnson is. Other than that, he's got pretty damn impeccable tape.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, a lot of coaches don't want you just going out there and obliterating guys because you lose technique when you're trying to hit for power. I would rather have somebody who has perfect technique every time, wraps the hands up, and drives through the player every time. I'll take it every single time. I don't need violent collisions. Let's take some of these injuries out of the game. But Antonio Johnson, right? Great size, 6'3", 200 pounds, just like you said. He is a very good run defender. He can play in the box. In fact, 25% of his college snaps came in the box. He's good at diagnosing and breaking up screens, which I think is an underrated trait. We saw it at a different position in Seattle. KJ Wright was one of the best defenders I've seen at recognizing a screen and getting in there and disrupting that screen before it has time to set up. Antonio Johnson has some of those. Last year. Yeah, we definitely could have used that last year. Antonio Johnson has some of those same instincts. He tracks the ball well, and he high points the ball like a wide receiver. He played wide receiver in high school. That might be where that comes from, but you see it, and it's a really good way to take away an aspect of the game that offenses try to pick on. If you know you have a safety, you're thinking maybe this guy isn't as athletic. We might be able to beat him over the top. And Antonio Johnson is going to make you pay. He's going to use all of that length. And he's going to go up and get that ball as if that ball was thrown to him.
Yeah.
Now, Antonio Johnson's actually number 4 on my list.
Well, there you go.
So I am a little bit higher on him than you are. And then here you have Sidney Brown out of Illinois.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. He's the second guy with the last name Brown, and they're very similar athletes. The difference is Sidney Brown tests better. This is another guy who's, again, under 6 foot, about 5'10", 5'11", again, over 210 pounds. Another just physical freak. And then if you go back and look at his final year in college, he put up just elite numbers. He was all over the field, great on pass breakups, interceptions, rushing the passer, defending against the run. He is probably, out of all the other players in this draft, save one, and he'll come up a little bit later. And actually, he'll be number 1, I think, on both of our lists, unless you have a surprise for me. He is the prototypical modern NFL safety, Sidney Brown. He can do it all.
Yeah. I think I said Daniel Scott was one of my favorite prospects in this draft. Sidney Brown's right there with him. I love both these guys. I think Sidney Brown is a gamer. He comes out every time he's on the field to show you that he's the best and he has the tools that you don't have, and he's going to make you pay for it. He's a very good athlete for a safety, right? 4'4", 740, 40.5-inch vert, 130-inch broad. 23 reps on the bench as an undersized guy. That's pretty impressive. He's got good coverage instincts and production. He had an 89.4 coverage grade by PFF. So he can shut you down, and he's playing the safety position. He's probably the best deep safety, not in the class, but he's one of the best deep safeties in this class. And that's the scheme and the system he needs to play in. Either a single high man system so that he is a support coverage guy for other corners that are in man, or he needs to play in a zone shell system.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So Sidney Brown is actually my number 3.
Course.
And this is where you have JL Skinner. So do you have anything else to say about either of these guys before we move on?
No, other than if a team finds a way to get both these guys, they will have one of the best safety duos in the NFL.
Definitely. All right. I have a little bit of a surprise here at number 2.
Okay.
So I have Keely Ringo.
Yeah, and I knew that. I did know that.
Yeah, the corner out of Georgia as my number 2 safety. And this is where you have Jordan Battle out of Alabama. Listen, Keely Ringo went into the season last year as the pretty much consensus number 1 ranked corner for this draft class. And he just fell off. He's an above average athlete. He ran a 4.36 in the 40. He's tall, he's long, but he's probably one of the biggest fallers in this class. Like I said, preseason number 1, number 2 corner. Now he's tracking down. And if you look, it's because even though he has natural instincts in coverage, he's really stiff. He is definitely one of those guys who has stiff hips. So why not just own it, convert to safety, where you can use that athleticism to range sideline to sideline, where he can be in a position to support coverage. And he does have the skills if they want to go match him up against a receiver, if they want to go match him up against a move tight end, if they want to say, okay, you have this running back, if he comes out on a route out of the backfield, right? He has all of those skills, but this would allow him to use those straight line speed that he has and not worry about some of this throttling down that he lacks in athleticism. He uses the track skill. He gets up to full speed and then he can't control it in order to move side to side in order to adjust to coverage. And that's kind of where his problems lie. And then, like I said, he just doesn't have fluid hips. So he would make a great safety. I think he'd make an average corner. And I hope that he makes this move because I think that's where he'll excel. I know he probably doesn't want to make this move because he'll definitely make more money as a corner. But this is where I see him definitely having the most impact in the NFL.
Yeah, look, there might be GMs out there that have the same mindset as you, but either way, Kylie Ringo is going to go in the first 2 rounds. It does, whether someone's drafting him to be a safety conversion or a cornerback, he's going to go early in this draft. The man's a ridiculous athlete.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's somebody who's going to get his shot at corner, right? That's the position that's a little more coveted. And if he can't hack it, then he'll probably move to safety, which I don't like that. I said that honestly, because I think safeties are just as important. There's a different skill set. So
depending on the scheme, that might be more important.
Exactly. But yeah, that's where I see him. How about Jordan Battle? Do you have anything else to say about him before we move on?
The only thing I'll say about Jordan Battle is this: if it not for his running mate in the backfield at Alabama, he would have been an absolute superstar in college. He would have been the guy that shined. But unfortunately, he is another one of those guys that just happened to be playing next to, similar to our very own Kobe Bryant and his running mate in college. This guy was just playing next to an absolute freak.
Well, that's a great segue because at number 1 on both of our boards is Brian Branch out of Alabama. Listen, clear-cut number 1 safety in the class. I think if he dropped the safety and put corner next to his name, he'd still be top 5, top 6 as a corner. Lacks a little bit of athleticism. That's why I think he needs to stick in that safety realm. But he has good skills, good technique. He can cover the slot. He can do whatever you need him to do. He's a versatile defensive back. Whether you want him in the box, you want him deep, you want him over the slot. He's got a high football IQ. I'm going to say elite run defender. I mean, this guy rarely misses a tackle. He missed 4 tackles in his entire college career. He hits like a linebacker. Quicker than fast. Once again, not going to go catch anybody in the open field if they're one of those speedsters, because he posted just shy of 4.6. It was a 4.58 40. And that affects his long speed. But in a safety, he's already got depth. He's already got that cushion built in. So that speed won't be a problem. I really like Brian Branch. He's going to end up being a defensive back Swiss Army knife for some team, and they're going to get a great player.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I mean, this guy again. This is probably one of the most instinctual players in this draft. Yeah, if you haven't seen game tape on Brian Branch, it's a tragedy that Alabama didn't show out at the playoffs this year because this guy deserves to be on a national stage.
Absolutely. Well, this has been our 2023 top 10 safety draft prospects episode. Thank you for listening. As always, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.